First, let me apologize for any loud noises you may be hearing at this time, but we really are on the inner workings of the crematory at this point. Also, you may notice that here at Anderson-McQueen, we have tried to make this an educational experience for families by providing signage and explanations as to what it is that you're seeing throughout the process. Our two cremation chambers, or retorts, that you see behind me here are manufactured locally and were designed specifically for our Cremation Tribute Center. Most cremation chambers have one door that allow for the placement of the human remains and the removal of the bone and bone fragment. However, ours were specifically designed with two. One that would allow you to participate in the initiation of the cremation process, as we saw earlier, or when no one is participating, it allows our care specialists to handle everything from back here in the inner workings of the crematory. Both of these units operate at a temperature of 16 to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. That will reduce the body to bone and bone fragment. Any container, cremation container, or casket that the body may be held in will be vaporized, again leaving only bone and bone fragment at the completion of the cremation process, which takes approximately 90 to 120 minutes to perform. Once completed, that bone and bone fragment will then be placed in what's called a cooling chamber here. And we have to allow approximately another hour for those remains to cool to a temperature where our operators can handle them. You may see this disc on this big system behind me here. This is what I call the tell-all disc. This system not only tracks the temperature of our retorts to ensure that they maintain a temperature of 16 to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit, but it will also track the flame. Many of our families ask us, do you cremate two remains at one time? And of course we do not. Not only because the law does not allow it, but also because this disc would be able to tell you if we were doing such a thing. These discs are new on equipment such as ours. Many older crematories don't have that type of equipment or that kind of protection. However, we're also regulated monthly by the EPA and other environmental regulatory agencies that will inspect not only the facility, but also monitor those discs. Once the cremated remains have cooled to that temperature, as I mentioned to you earlier, they will then be transferred over here to the processing station. This is our cremation processing station. Once the cremated remains have cooled to the temperature where our care specialists can handle them, they will do a visible inspection of the cremated remains for any metal, such as pins or screws or metal prostheses that may be contained within the bone and bone fragment. Once all that metal has been removed, our care specialist will then place them into the processing unit, which will further pulverize the bone and bone fragment into the smaller particles that you may be familiar with as being cremated remains. Once processed, our care specialist will then carefully place those cremated remains inside of the urn or other appropriate container selected by the family to be delivered back to the appropriate chapel. I want to take just a moment to share with you what cremated remains actually look like. As many families have shared with us over the years, that since they've been referred to as ashes, oftentimes they think that they're similar to that which might come out of a fireplace, and that is not the case. I also want to preface that these are not real cremated remains, but it will give you an example of what they actually look like. As you can see, it's a relatively granular substance, and this is actually kitty litter, but it is actually a good example of what cremated remains actually do look like. I'd like to take just another moment to share with you about our computer system here in the Cremation Tribute Center. All of our outlying chapels are connected to our Cremation Tribute Center via T1 lines, and we operate on a virtual private network. This allows our funeral directors or other staff members in outlying chapels to be able to operate in real time with our crematory. As we are actually doing the cremation or processing the cremated remains, our operators will update all that information into the computer system as each step progresses. Then, if you or your family call one of our facilities to find out the status of your loved one's cremation, we're able to tell you in real time where the entire process stands and when you can expect the return of the cremated remains. Behind me is our refrigeration facility. We can accommodate upwards of 50 remains at any given time here at the crematory. Many families over the years have often felt that the bodies were kept in a freezer or frozen, but that is not the case. It is actually a refrigeration facility, and we maintain a temperature just above freezing at about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Also, here at our Cremation Tribute Center, we actually operate with operating procedures that exceed the industry standards as set forth by the Cremation Association of North America. Many families will ask us, if I'm not present for that witnessing of the cremation, how do I know that the cremated remains I get back are my loved one's cremated remains? So let me take just a moment to share with you what procedures we have put in place to ensure that your loved one's remains are the remains you get back following the cremation process. First, all remains, when they enter our facility, will receive this hold tag. And we know that that means we cannot cremate those remains until it has cleared the hold process. In order to clear that process, we have several legal requirements that must be met, such as the signatures by the doctors on the death certificate, the approval by the medical examiner, and a minimum of a 48-hour waiting period before we can do the cremation. Once our administrative offices have notified the care center that all those requirements have been met, we then require that 2 independent funeral directors or care specialists actually take these green forms and complete them and then place them on the container that holds the human remains. Once both green stickers have been done independently by our operators, then our care manager knows that that body can then be cremated. Also, as an added step, this is our tracking system. We have a little metal disc that is placed with your loved one's remains and will remain with the human body throughout the cremation process. In fact, when you get those cremated remains back, you will find this little metal tag attached to the cremated remains inside of the urn or other suitable container that you've chosen. Lastly, behind me is our centralized preparation facility. Here, Patrick O'Neill, our care center manager, and his dedicated staff handle all aspects concerning human remains, including embalming if selected. This is the one room that we do not allow access by the general public. Obviously, that's for safety reasons as well as privacy concerns. However, over here on the wall, you can see that we've placed signage that describes to you how the embalming process is performed, as well as the need for universal precautions, and the various photographs that describe and illustrate what the insides of this facility look like. Now, before you depart, I'd like to share with you 3 important questions that you should ask any cremation provider that you may be discussing options with before making your final decision. Those questions would be: first, who owns the crematory? Second, where is it located? And third, and most importantly, when can I inspect it? You may be surprised by the answers you receive.